house rules. Join us on AVE Live, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us on Zoom. Watch on Facebook or YouTube from the AV Educate page, or register as an attendee for the webinar. Live Q&A. Our guest will lead us through a guided demo and conversation about tonight's topic. We will take your questions and comments throughout the show. Don't wait until the end. Get your questions and comments in early to shape the conversation. We don't know it all. We're human and don't claim to know everything. We may demonstrate or discuss one way to do something, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. If you've found another way that is easier or yields better results, please share with the community so we can all learn together. Follow AV Educate. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and have a library of content on YouTube. Join us on Zoom for AV Tech Talks and to become a member of our community on Discord, where the conversations, the learning, and the sharing continues. We are where you are. Place your phone over the QR code to come learn more about AV Educate.
Welcome back to AV Tech Talks. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, we are talking about extended reality, XR, and disguise with our guest, Kevin Ring. So, this has been a long time. I've wanted to get Kevin in, and Omar, he has the connection. He got Kevin to come in, and he set it all up and made it happen. You heard our house rules. Our new house rules have been all set. It's a new video. Hope you guys like that. Hope it all looked good for you in the pre-show out in Facebook and YouTube land. So while you're watching, make sure you get in some questions if you have any. We'll take questions throughout the show. So from our panel, extended reality. Do anybody know what we're talking about when we say extended reality? And anybody used any kind of XR? Great, Dave. You want to give us a little idea of what you've done?
Well, I haven't done specific extended reality. I know what it is and researched it some. I have done some LED virtual stages, but they haven't done XR per se. We've just, done cool backgrounds and used them like green screen more.
Got it. And John, I think I saw your hand. What do you know about XR?
And not to be dangerous, I consult with the California State Parks, and we've done some things with Time Looper, extended reality. We have some 3D images of divers underwater in the kelp forest, which we could put on people's desktops. So, and we're trying to look at how to improve the experiences of people going to California State Parks, and see some real opportunities with this.
Cool. And then Omar, you said you had your hand up. What have you done?
I haven't done anything as cool as you guys. I did some training with Kevin though, which is equally as cool because we had the whole setup there and we got through a lot of fun stuff. So I've done some training. That's about it.
Got it. Yeah, I got to do some disguise training, not with Kevin, unfortunately. I took it at the Brooklyn office because I'm on the East Coast a couple of years ago, back on R15. So that tells you that was a little while ago. But I took all 4 days. So I took fundamentals, creative sequencing, and integration. So really crazy program. I still have a dongle too that has time on it. So That's always a nice thing. But Kevin, love to hear about XR. Can you start? Just give us take it away, I guess.
Absolutely. Obviously, XR or extended reality has kind of been a hot topic in the industry as of late. We have been working on this before COVID, but COVID obviously has catapulted this into the atmosphere for what it is today. But by XR, we really mean extended reality. And I do have some slides and some pictures to show what I mean, but basically, though, we are combining reality, people, virtual reality, augmented reality, and cohesively combining them into what we call extended reality. So it's just a really fun interplay of people, objects, props, and things that don't exist, and making worlds seem more real.
Cool. So, what would you like to show us? Where do we start in this journey?
That's a fantastic question. So, as of today, Disguise XR is still technically in beta. I am happy to announce, though, that we are going full release within the next 2 to 3 weeks, where every single user will have access to the XR capabilities. So the best place to start is at square one, the very, very beginning. And with our Disguise training programs, we have that as our basic fundamentals training course. The basic fundamentals training course is your introduction to Disguise, to the ecosystem of the platform, where you learn how it works, how it operates. You're able to create your 3D visualization, and you're able to then play back content. From there, you have different learning paths. If you want to go towards integration, you want to go towards live events with DMX creation, DMX sequencing, OmniCal, our camera system, and then augmented reality, and then eventually the XR workflows. I'm going to talk about this a lot throughout the talk, but we do have a 100% free, that's right, free online e-learning platform. This isn't just taped webinars. This is an actual integrated e-learning platform with questions, answers, demonstrations, projects, and you can really get the full experience. Once XR does go live, we will be adding the XR training workflows to this curriculum as well. So if you want to jump in now, it's training.disguise.one, and you can register for the basic classes. And then by the time we go gold very soon, you'll be able to take the XR workflow courses too. And I said I'm going to mention the e-training quite a lot. I have some pictures of it. We are very, very, very proud of it.
That's great. Oh, go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, sorry, just everybody out there, we just dropped that link in the comments. So if you're looking for it, I just dropped it in the comments within Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom. Go ahead and click on that if you guys want to register for that while we're here. I definitely highly recommend it. Kevin was a great instructor, and I can only imagine the instructions you put online is even better. So,
well, I wouldn't say better because I didn't know, Nate, but we are also working very closely with the local governance wherever we are located to resume in-person training as soon as we safely can in Los Angeles and abroad as well. So if you ever do want the Kevin experience, you're able to come to our LA office and spend 2 to 4 days with me, however much you can handle. I'm probably best in small chunks, I would say.
Great.
All right, so would you like me to begin my presentation? You want to tell some jokes? How you guys want to go?
I mean, if you have jokes, we can do that for a while, but
Well, I told you guys my other joke when we were in the pre-show, but just to kind of let everyone know what to expect for the next hour or so. So this is a rehash. So we all know Disney Plus. Disney Plus is now showing Star Wars and all these other really cool exclusive premieres. Did you hear that Disney Plus is actually making a new crossover of Star Wars and Back to the Future? And they're going to call it the DeLorean. All right, so,
Kevin, thank you for joining us. It's been great having you here today.
Yeah, I understand that completely. At least with my PTZ.
Well, no, I mean, like as I said earlier, you're a new dad, so you got to get those dad joke practices in. And
I really do.
That's a good one to start with. Good one.
I think I like to start high. I have one that I'll end with. That's my mic drop. But anyone who's taken my classes in person knows that my teaching style is a little different from others. I try to make it fun. I try to make it engaging. We will laugh. We will learn. We will cry. We will cry. And we get through the journey together. In my capacity here with Disguise as Senior Support and Training Specialist for the US, I am able to continue that mission of making users cry nationwide.
Great.
So tonight we are a fun place to cry, everybody.
We are a safe space. You can have your tears. Okay.
Great. So yeah, let's take a look at what you got, Kev.
Let's take a look at what I got. I'll see if I can figure out how to do this. So one thing you're all going to notice, my Windows is not activated. For that, I apologize. The reason it's not activated is because I refuse to steal a copy of Windows. I will buy one. I will buy one. But that day is not today. That day is not tomorrow either. But I will buy a license to Windows. Are you seeing these controls at the top of my screen, or are you just seeing my PowerPoint?
Just your PowerPoint.
Fantastic. Yeah, I have the Zoom controls here. Pardon my ignorance. It's been a long time since I've been on a Zoom call. That's a joke. I was on 15 Zoom calls earlier today. But either way, we are talking about AV Educate, which is a group that is near and dear to my heart. I'm a big fan of what this group does and everything that it advocates for. And then, of course, Disguise, which is quite near and dear to my heart. One, because they pay me, and two, because I just really, really enjoy the product and the message. So let's make sure my keys work. Our tagline is imagine, create, and deliver spectacular live visual experiences. But more than that, we like to call our user group our community. We're more than just a product. You're more than just users. We are artists. We are creatives. But we're in this together. And we truly do mean that. So on behalf of Disguise, to everyone watching, everyone here on the panel, I must first say, welcome to the Disguise community. So what is Disguise? Obviously, we are a hardware and software platform. We are used by live events, concerts, houses of worship, installations, of course, XR, and we have a global audience of over 2 billion. That's right, billion with a B. Now, of course, we're probably taking a lot of people who watch some of the broadcasts, but you know what? I'll take it. But at the end of the day, live events is what we are passionate about. We have dedicated hardware and software specifically for playing back and manipulating very large pieces of multimedia. And we are proud to be used in Super Bowls, Broadway shows, corporate events, left and right. Our software is award-winning. I will talk more about this as we dive into it, but we have a full 3D pre-visualization suite included with our software. So think more like AutoCAD and Vectorworks, where you're able to draw out your entire venue months before you ever get there. Then hardware. I know we're going to do a clean show, so our hardware kicks butt. See, Omar, it's not hard to not curse. But our hardware is scalable, it's incredibly powerful, and we are easily capable of driving more than 8K worth of content. We will dive a little bit deeper into the exact options of what we have and what you can do. But one of my favorite parts of Disguise as a video engineer, that's my background in live event video engineering, is our VFC cards, the video format conversion cards. For a show of hands on the panel, who here is familiar with the DataPath FX4s? Fantastic. Our cards basically work as a built-in DataPath FX4. Most hardware-based media servers do not do very well with different output resolutions across the GPU. The reason why is the graphics card is unable to sync the different resolutions. So what we've done is we've actually put scalers into the output cards themselves. So no matter what you're outputting from Disguise, the Disguise will recognize it as 2 or 4 4Ks, depending on your system. The card itself will then convert and scale to the appropriate resolution that you want. So as a result, from one server, you can do 2 1080p's, 2 1080i's, 4K, and a 2560 1600 with everything in sync. The other cool part is our cards are field modular. So similar to like a Barco E2 system or an Analog Way Aquilon, you can mix and match and replace the cards what you want. One week you can have your server be outfit with all HDMI, the next week it could be all SDI, or a cohesive mixture between the two. Our quad cards, the quad SDI and the quad DDI, have 4 HD outputs on them. If you put that into, say, a server like the VX4, which has 4 VFC slots, you can do up to 16 HD outputs, each with a discrete output resolution from one system. Pretty freaking sweet. Freaking. See, Omar? But Omar curses a lot in case you all haven't noticed. We also have our OmniCal system, which I'll talk a little bit about in just a few slides. But why? Why Disguise? Why me? Why us? We have 3 taglines: the power to create, the power to respond, power to scale. We'll go into those a little bit. So as I mentioned, what we're probably most famous for is our 3D visualization. Rather than making 16:9 square flat output windows, in Disguise you actually create a 3D rendering of your venue and your space. So you'll build all your LED screens, you'll build all your projectors, you could put your DMX lights, all your objects, and have complete control over them. So what's cool is before you ever get to show site, you can see what the projector is going to look like. You can verify that you have the right throw ratio for your lens. You can even do brightness comparisons to make sure that your projectors are bright enough to match your LED displays. And that's not just for previs then. This actually becomes the operator monitor. So when you're a Disguise operator on show site, you are looking at the 3D visualization in real time. Because it's 3D, we are fully supported by the Oculus Rift and HTC Vive headset. So you can put one of the virtual reality headsets on and walk through the venue. I've actually done corporate events where we have done the rehearsal 3 weeks before we load in, and I bring a VR headset to the client's office. They put that on, and they can actually virtually stand on the stage, and I can even verify if the downstage monitors are angled right, or if the text is too small or too big, well before we ever get to show site. So we are able to then minimize how much time we have to be on site. We can minimize the on-stage rehearsals, and it's pretty awesome. Plus, if you haven't already, the VR headsets are really cool. You can play some fun video games with them. So I highly recommend you check that out. As you could all probably tell, I'm a very casual person. So if there are questions, by all means, feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. Otherwise, I just talk. All right, then. So Disguise is a timeline-based media server. That scares some corporate people, but don't worry, I will alleviate your fears. I am here for you. But what you do is you build a timeline. So like you would on After Effects or Final Cut Pro or any other linear-based software system, you're able to program your show from beginning, middle to end with layers and cues. This is kind of cool, but obviously it's very different from most classic approaches, say like Playback Pro, Pro Video Player, or other cue-based systems. So you do have to kind of think ahead and figure out what is coming next. But because we're timeline-based, we have a lot more control over certain parameters. All my corporate friends here, have you ever had a corporate video where 6 minutes in, the audio ducks out completely or it spikes way too high? Rather than having to ride the fader and keep track until the audio goes, 30 seconds till the audio sucks, you're able to go into the timeline, find that one section, and make the adjustment that you need to. Then it's done, and your audio guy can have unity, but more importantly, you can just sit there and eat your show bacon and your big cookies and not have to worry about this one action. Cool. Awesome. Oh, you can, of course, do like color correction and all those important things, but the cookies. For all you lighting folks out there and DMX programmers, we are natively supported with ArtNet and SACN with our DMX workflows. We utilize a proprietary system called Sock Puppet. Almost think like a Catalyst on steroids if you want to go in the Wayback Machine for lighting-based systems. But you're able to apply a layer or a piece of content or really any value to a DMX channel. You can control the entire thing through a lighting console and really get that more rock and roll feel. But what's cool though is you're able to bounce back and forth. If you want to control in the more linear standpoint and then bounce control over to the lighting programmer, you can do so within one show. This is great for corporate events where you're maybe doing like the talking head presentation, and then you have whatever act from America's Got Talent is going to come out with the TVs or the glow suits that we've seen at every single corporate event that we've ever done. And if you also do corporate events, you probably worked with like the Bare Naked Ladies, the Beach Boys. I can almost guarantee it. So you can then throw control over to the lighting programmer for that, do rock and roll, corporate within the very next day. It's kind of like the mullet of AV, business in the front, party in the back. So as I mentioned, we have a 3D visualizer. So we've probably all seen like very nice rendered out Vectorworks drawings. We can basically do the same thing in Disguise, where we apply what we call our Lux renderer. And this is going to apply much more detail, texture, and even shadows. Using the Lux renderer, I can then render out a full visualizer in a movie, send it to my customer, and they can see what their stage is going to look like with all the lights flashing, the video playing on screen, and their shadows casting on the ground. The more work you put into it, the better it's going to look, and the more information you get. So if you have a chandelier hanging in your ballroom and you decide to draw that in the system, turn the Lux renderer on, that'll tell you if it's going to be in the projection cone and be casting a shadow on your screen. Now, it's probably not going to get them to move the chandelier, but maybe it'll convince them to go to rear projection or LED or something else. Maybe just move the projector 3 feet to the side. Doesn't really matter. This is probably one of my favorite features of Disguise, is our projector study. And what's cool is you can all do this with the designer license. You don't need a piece of hardware. So all you can go to www.disguise.one and register for our free designer license and actually use this right away. But what we can do is when you place the projectors, the screens, and all the props into your venue, you can turn on a heat study, and it's going to show you how many LUTs are actually being reflected off of any surface. So if I want to show my customer that, hey, you know, maybe a 12K 75 feet away in the ballroom is not a good idea. Maybe that should be a 20K or stacked 12Ks. I can actually show with visual proof that the projectors are not bright enough. I can also do this, compare LEDs versus projectors. It's really great. I love it for projection mapping. If I'm going to be mapping onto a 3D object, maybe a building or a car like in this demonstration, I can figure out the appropriate angles for the projectors and make sure that I have the appropriate light balance and reflectivity before I ever get there. Nifty. Advanced Projection Toolkit. What we always say is if you can do it in the projector, you can do it in Disguise. Now, all you corporate people out there, I'm not suggesting that we remove the need for projectionists. I'm saying we need those projectionists. But if you're doing a very tight turnaround or a tight load in, it's more like a rock and roll show, you can do all the warping, the corner pinning, the overlapping, the edge blending, the feathering. You can do all that from Disguise very, very quickly. So if you need to set up a 3 projector blend for a rehearsal really quick, you can dial in Disguise, dial it in about 10 minutes, and then when rehearsal's done, you can send the projectionist up there and do the work. Now, of course, it depends on the show. If it's IMAG for rock and roll, sure, just do it in Disguise. Be done. If it's going to be a corporate event and they're going to be looking at Excel sheets, yeah, you know, get the guy up in the scissor lift and have him do his thing. But if all of that is too hard for you, or not actually too hard, let's say you want to take it to the next level, we have our OmniCal system. OmniCal is a series of cameras that are PoE powered that you connect to Disguise. It then gives Disguise the ability to see. Ooh. So what this will do is this will auto map projection onto your 3D objects. So even if the quick cal is not enough for you, I could put a series of objects matching an object file in OBJ, and it will automatically dial in, color balance, and do the gamma correction and the feathering for all the projectors. Should an item move or a projector get kicked, it can recalibrate in just a moment or two. It's pretty sweet. But if anyone went to the Ariana Grande Sweetener tour back when we were allowed to do concerts, you notice that every single night was a balloon and a stage that was projection mapped with 34 Barco UDX projectors. That was done with OmniCal every night because they only had about 3 hours to dial in all the projectors. But as a result, they were able to take 3D moving projection mapping on a world tour. Sweet. D3Net, my slide is a little outdated and I apologize for that. We don't call it, we now call it director and actor, but D3Net allows you to configure multiple servers together. Basically, if you need more outputs, you can throw more servers. They all work as one cohesive server farm. So looking at the output feed configuration, every output can have different scaling. So that's awesome. So I could send pixel perfect content to my LED. I could then send a downscaled 4K version to a downstage monitor. I could send a cut version to a green room. I could send a custom EDIT to my LED wall. I can send whatever I want. I can chop things up. I can rotate them. I can split them. I can invert them. I can do one thing I've actually done before. I don't recommend doing this, but I had an LED display where one of the panels or two of the panels had gotten crossed. I actually chopped up the feed to be the appropriate pixel size of the LED wall, and I just fixed it on my end. I'm just going to fix my PTZ camera here. Yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Cool. All right. So one thing we pride ourselves with at Disguise is trying to speak every language and every protocol that you might encounter on a production, whether it's LTC, MIDI, DMX, ArtNet, OSC, SACN, KNX, OpenAPI, Blacktracks, Kinesis, blah. We can probably communicate with it. So if you want, if you're doing a concert and you want a Pro Tools rig with the opening C major chord to kickstart a track, we can do that. If you want to have a lighting console kickstart a track, we can do that. Or if you want to go the other way and have us kickstart a lighting console or kickstart a Pro Tools rig, not a problem. Oh, this one's kind of fun. Dynamic soft edge. So because Disguise is more like a AutoCAD or Vectorworks style program, you actually put on the software where your projectors are going to live in reality. Because Disguise knows where the projectors are in reality, and we have the heat map tool, Disguise is able to calculate projection overlap for you automatically. So you know when you overlap projectors, you have that one hot spot in the center where you have to go in and adjust the gamma and the feathering and make it look even. We do that for you automatically, literally a click of a button. Omar will attest to this.
Yes, I agree. I attest to that.
Oh, this is one of my favorite parts. They're all my favorite part, if you probably noticed. So whenever I mention timelines, people in the corporate world get a little, ooh, like, I don't really know how to work with a timeline because the only thing you can count on in a live event is that something is going to change. The CEO could decide, you know what, I'm going to talk before the keynote speaker. I'm going to change all these slides. Obviously, on a timeline, that could be difficult because then you do what's called jumping the timeline, where you're playing in linear fashion. You then have to jump to another section, and now you have to jump back to that section and then skip the section you'd already played. Programming nightmare. It's very easy to program yourself into a corner. To solve this, we added what we call our universal crossfade. This allows you to jump with a clean fade to any section on any timeline on any track at any time. So if you want to forget about the whole idea of even running it as a timeline, you can just place all your content, put a cue marker in front of it, utilize an Elgato Stream Deck doing companion with OSC commands, and run the entire thing like a glorified Playback Pro on steroids. Nice. So that's really cool. And it's just a nice fade. I'm a big fan of that. We'll talk about this a little bit more.
Question for you.
Yes, it could be a slow question.
Okay. The universal crossfade, can that be a cut? Can it be a dissolve differently depending? Can you have 3 buttons on your Stream Deck, 15 frame, 10 frame cut? Or is it always 30 frames?
It can be both. So what you're able to do is when you set the universal crossfade, that's going to be project-wide, where it's going to say everything is going to be this crossfade. But then you can go into each cue or each layer or each track and do a crossfade override. For example, we break it down into tracks. So if you want to have, let's say you're coming from the concert world and you have an artist who's doing 15 songs. You don't know what order they're going to play the songs each night. Rather than having to guess the timeline, you could build a track for each song and then have a clean timeline there. If I know on song 7, I want to have a 45 frame crossfade, something stupid, I can set that override to just affect that one track, while my universal crossfade is still set to the default. We then also now support different fade parameters. So if you want to have a video come in as an interstitial and pop up as you do the fades, we now support that as well. So you can then mix and match and utilize all these fun tools.
So you can do like a broadcast wipe where an element flashes across the screen.
Absolutely. You can do a broadcast wipe with either a full screen video. You can do it with a cut and a fill married together. However you'd like to do that, yes. It's pretty awesome. And the best part too, because we have the previs, you can set up all of these and rehearse them from the comfort of your laptop at your house 6 months before the show. I'm in the desert. It's very important to stay hydrated.
I think since we broke the ice here a little bit, I wanted to jump into some of these questions we got here.
Oh, yes.
And they're piled up, so I'm really proud of the community for this. So one of the first ones I got from Eddie Martinez here was, how do I get started? What is the entry-level hardware cost for an output? Is his first question he asks.
Okay. So the way you get started is you're able to visit our website at disguise.one. We have the software as there's a software and a hardware configuration. The software, the designer license, is 100% free. You do need a USB dongle, which is available from our website, but the actual software that runs on it is 100% free. Everything you can do on a server, you can do on your laptop, except for physical output. You can output from the laptop, but we are going to put a watermark on there every minute or so, just to make sure you aren't using this in a show situation. But besides that, we don't put any restrictions on how many outputs you get. If your laptop or computer can handle 6 outputs, you can practice doing 6 projector blends and all that. You're just going to have to deal with the watermark every minute or so. From the hardware standpoint, and I want to say I have a slide about that. You know what? Let me just jump out and go to that slide because I think that's important. Pardon my messy desktop.
So are you saying you can run on your own hardware? You don't have to have Disguise hardware?
I'm saying you can build on your own hardware and you can test on your own hardware, but you cannot do a show with your own hardware.
Even with the dongle?
Correct. The dongle will allow the software to run. At that point, though, if you want to use this in an outputting show situation, we do require you to utilize our hardware. And that is where we differ from other media server companies where they do the BYOC, build your own computer. But we do this to guarantee performance and also then help with support. So we don't have to worry about operating systems, drivers, firmwares, and then whatever hardware that you have on your homebrew machine. But we have 3 ranges of hardware. We have what we call the Plus range, the Pro range, and the Graphics range. The Plus range is pretty much the Disguise Solo. It's a 1 RU unit system, 2 RU units, perfect for permanent installations. Not very powerful. We then have the Pro and the Graphics. The Graphics is made for real-time generative content. If you want to do Notch and things of those natures, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but you want to do real-time content creation, where basically you don't have rendered content. You have a series we call OpenGL shaders, where it's taking a series of 0s and 1s and actually creating content in real time. This is very popular for concerts, or if you want to have Katy Perry flying around the Superdome with sparklers coming out of her area, you can utilize see Omar, I did it. You can utilize Notch to then track her and have particles emit from that location. For the corporate world, we have our Pro range, which the flagship is currently the VX4, which is able to do up to 16 HD outputs and 16 HD inputs. Whoa, super cool. But yeah. So what's really cool though is we do fully, truly, 100% support the idea of building the show at home and loading it on a server. So unlike other systems where you can kind of cheat a simulator, you can actually take a full show built on your laptop on a thumb drive, plug it into a server, and be operating in just a matter of minutes. It is literally the same exact software.
You mentioned inputs. What's the latency on those inputs to output?
We are at less than 2 frames of latency when you are genlocked.
Wow.
Yes. Now that is assuming progressive inputs. If you're utilizing an interlace signal, you have to go through the deinterlacer. That's probably going to double your latency. But previously, though, this is more of like the philosophical question. Then at that point, a lot of people have always said, well, at what point do I no longer need an image processor or a screen switcher, i.e. a sender, a spider, an E2? And previously, the limitation's always been latency, where the capture rates were just too slow on these hardware-based servers to really mimic what you could do from an image processor. Now, I'm not saying that one way is better than the other, but there are now a lot of situations where you can take your inputs directly into the server and have similar latency that you would with a dedicated screen switcher. So is that the workflow of the future? I'm not the one to say. But we're getting better with live inputs.
Here, and I'll just jump in there with another one real quick. So Ed has another question, and I'll ask this a little bit backwards. So think of this as a mini studio. Could I do an 85-inch LED screen behind my head and build an XR workflow that way?
Yes.
Yes. I love
Yes.
it. Simple.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about that when I get to the XR section. But with XR, as long as you have a point of reference where I have something that's going to display pixels that I can put in reality and then have those same pixels exist in my 3D visualizer, once they reference each other, now Disguise knows where you are and where that is. And then, yeah, the world's your oyster. You can do XR. More importantly, you can do that with augmented reality. You can do that from your laptop with a webcam, and you can do that right now. We actually have instructions on our website. What else?
I think DJ was up after this. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Let me verify I'm not missing something. And cool. I am, but I'll change it to Disa's name anyway, so she can take over.
Oh, well,
thank you
so much, Omar. All right, let me find where you're editing here. So, is this the one about the LED screen? Is that right, Omar?
Nope, the one right below that one.
Okay, so Eddie Martinez here on Zoom with us is asking, what is the difference between a single HDMI card and a server? VFC HDMI 2.0 version, versus the rack server. Wow, that's like a super techie question you gave me, Omar.
Yeah, but I get it though. So that's probably the biggest difference between our Plus range and the Graphics and Pro range. So in order to save cost, we have made the cards on the Plus range fixed cards. So they are actually attached to the motherboard directly, and they cannot be modified or changed. So that would include the 2x2, the 2x4 Plus, the Solo, and I think there was another one, the V2.5 and a couple of the other legacy servers. Basically, that you get what you get. If you purchase a server with 4 HDMIs, you have 4 HDMIs. With the Pro range and the Graphics range, we have the VFC, Video Format Conversion cards. These are modular field replaceable cards, similar to like the Barco E2 or the Analog Way Aquilon, where you can customize it per show. So the server might default from the factory with 4 HDMI 2.0 cards, but I can buy quad SDI, I can buy DisplayPort 1.2, I can buy quad DVI, and I can mix and match them as I want.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I feel like, Eddie, I'm sorry, I feel like you kind of got all your questions were asked at the very beginning. So I'm actually going to just zip to one that I got in my DMs from Brenton March with our BC branch. Super excited to connect with him. What a small community it is to run into these people. And he heard about this through Notch. So thank you so much for sharing the program with your fellow communities and helping us expand our reach. Very exciting times for that. So he's asking, is Disguise going to release a GX3 with the new A6000, as the GX2 is a bit long in the tooth these days?
Well, I would answer that question with another question towards him, saying, well, would you rather see a upgraded GX series, or would you rather see an upgraded RX render node? Mm-hmm. So it's a hypothetical question where I'm not going to answer that, but you tell me what you'd prefer.
I'll circle back. Feel free, Marchie, to DM me a rebuttal, and we'll circle back on it. But that's all I have for now.
Fantastic. Well, let's do the dizzy punch through my slides really quick, unless you want me to go through them again, because I do have more. But I think the energy was there the first time. I doubt I can match that a second, Kyle.
I'd love to see some of the software.
Oh, I'll show you the software.
Great.
Yes, we'll get there. We'll get there. Got more PowerPoints. So, Disguise, how do we start? Obviously, we've been around for a couple of years. It was the United Visual Artist Group, founded by Ashraf Nehru. We became D3. So fun fact, the original software was called Mosquito at one point. That was the first release. And then they decided to really package it together. And they're like, all right, well, what is the natural predator of a mosquito? And it turns out it's Dragonfly. Then there's Dragonfly version 1, Dragonfly version 2, Dragonfly version 3, shortened down to D3, thus D3 was born. And then in 2017, we became Disguise because someone beat us to D3. But a couple fun places you'll see us: Broadways, concerts, Metallica, etc., etc. Anyone here been to the Atlanta airport recently? The flight path between, like, I think it's terminal gates B and C, it's powered by Disguise Solo. But because you're all techie people, I'm going to give you a little bit of tech specs as well. People will say, well, what can I play back in Disguise Server? So here are our supported file formats as of right now. QuickTime DXV, HAP, HAPQ, HAP Alpha, Photo JPEG, Animation, Notch LC, TIFF sequences, and OBJs for our 3D objects. Now, all you people are probably saying, well, I don't see MP4. I don't see H.264. Is that a mistake? And I am happy to answer, no, that is not a mistake. So those are what we call an intermediary codec. And what I mean by that is that video is decoded on both the CPU and the GPU of the computer. So as a result, you're always limited basically on the read-write speeds between the two. There are other codecs which are what's known as a GPU-dependent codec, where it's decoded more so or even entirely on the graphics card. This allows you to utilize these really, really powerful graphics cards to the fullest extent. So those are going to be the HAPQ, the Notch LC, and uncompressed TIFF sequences. So believe it or not, a Notch LC file at 16K or 8K will actually run better than an MP4 at 4K, because it's not an intermediary codec. But the one thing I do love, though, our maximum texture size is 16,384 by 16,384. That's as big as we can accept for one image or one video. So if you want to do an 8 projector blend, you can have that come in as one file. You don't need to go to your content creator and tell them to chop it up as 8, 19, 20, 1080 sections so you can play that on your Playback Pro Simple Sync and hope it all works. If you want to do 30,000, then yeah, you got to give me 2 files. I apologize for that. And then audio, we do support audio, quantized tracks, MP3, 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz. Enough of that, unless y'all want me to talk more. Extended reality. Let's talk about why we're probably all here today, unless you want to hear me say more jokes. All right, so what is XR? So XR is our term for the collection of different workflows. It's a combination of reality. We have to have real things, real people, real LED. Augmented reality, pixels that don't actually exist. And then what we do is we combine those into mixed reality. It's a growing business sector. I'm not going to bore you too much on the business opportunities unless you want to invest. No? Okay. But why? Why? So this technology is not new. Obviously, green screen technology has been around for years. Before that, blue screen technology. But that has its faults. So the biggest issues you're going to have is reflection. So if you have hair or certain wardrobes or clothes, it's going to reflect the green spill on you. It's going to make it very hard to key this out. More importantly, the actor has nothing to actually interact with. You're usually looking at a confidence monitor trying to reference this tennis ball and a stick. We've all seen making a Game of Thrones, and there's no dragon, unfortunately. They don't exist. It's usually a tennis ball on a fishing line or something. So that makes it very difficult. But more importantly, this has to be done in post-processing. It's going to be done after the fact. Well, why now? Why? Obviously, COVID's the white elephant in the room. But there's been 3 trends in technology that allow us to get this point. 1, LED has gotten affordable and a very, very, very fine pixel pitch. GPUs, graphical processing units or graphics cards, have gotten ridiculously fast and attainable by the end user to an extent. And then artists are turning to real-time generative creation content engines like Unity, Unreal, and Notch. This LED that you're looking here 10 years ago would have cost over $1 million. I can guarantee all of you probably by the end of this conversation are going to have at least 3 LinkedIn requests from an LED rep trying to sell you a product for cheap. So with Disguise XR, we have our workflow, which is in-camera screens, camera tracking, generative content, AR, and of course the workflow. Big one, of course, is green screen replacement. We've all probably seen this. So rather than utilizing a green screen, we're utilizing LED displays to render backplate content to in real time. This is awesome because there's no keying. I don't have to use a chroma layer of any vision mixer. I don't have to do this in post. There's no green spill, so I can have much more realistic lighting. I can have realistic shadows. If I put a ceiling or a roof on the LED, I can have it show sky and actually have sunlight beam down on the person's face. And the talent, whether it's the CEO, the actor, whomever, can actually interact with the content around them. A big thing that's popular with corporate events is having a Skype call pop in, and you can actually look at the person and have the Skype conversation with them. So that's kind of fun. Camera tracking. This is kind of the secret sauce. So the way all this works, and I'll happily give a little bit of a demonstration with the software in just a moment, is we are linking the real world, so cameras that exist in reality, with the virtual cameras that are within our ecosystem of Disguise. As we play back this generative content on our screens, we want a camera that's referencing the generative content to move as the camera in reality moves. Yes, yes. There are a couple different ways to do this, but popular systems are Moses with their Star Tracker system. Hello, Erica, if you're watching. Stipe, NCAM, OptiTrack, BlackTracks, and then there are the FreeD, F-R-E-E-D protocols that are on the Panasonic UE100, UE150, and the new Sony PTZ or PTZ cameras. What's cool is Disguise, besides the actual physical tracking, we handle all the calibration. So if you're sending us lens data, we will interpolate that, put it on our virtual cameras, and then we'll do our own observation calibration system, and we know exactly where in reality the camera exists. Nice. We also support multiple cameras. So if you want to do camera switching in XR, we got your back. Generative content. So think more like video game design. So I'd say Unreal is probably the most popular, but Unreal Engine is used for creating video games. Because video games have gotten so photorealistic, we're able to take that same technology and use it towards live real-time production. But because it's not real, we can make changes. If you want it to look like 5 p.m. sunrise or 5 p.m. sunset, you can do that with a click of a button. If you want to move a tree, you want to move a rock, whatever, you can do it. Augmented reality, pixels that don't exist, having them pop up. This could be done what we call front plate. Maybe you have a corporate event where the CEO is talking about the numbers from last year, and rather than being a PowerPoint behind them, it could be a pie chart that pops up in front of them that they can then interact with. Yes, yes. And then, of course, the Disguise workflow. Everything I mentioned to you very long-winded before we got to this point, you still have. So if you want to put the virtual reality headset on, you want to control it from a MIDI controller, you want to give control to the lighting console, you want to control lights. Let's see some fun pictures. So look at that. So this is a fun one. We call them all obviously LED volumes, where it's an encompassing area where content's being rendered to in real time. You can see on the camera is the tracking mechanism itself. And what's cool about this volume is it does have an LED ceiling. So this has become very popular. Allows the cinematographer to get different shots, and mostly helps for the lighting and the shadows. Rather than having to match DMX lights to the lighting of the scene, you can just use LEDs, which at the end of the day are just millions and millions of little tiny light bulbs, to render the actual content. So you know the color temperature, the intensity, everything else is going to match the scene. Here's an actual XR show. I think the content was done by our good friends at Excite Labs out of Calabasas, California, with Velo and Greg. Good guys, good crew. But what's cool about this one, though, is if you look in the center, you see that the center of the LED is rendered slightly differently. So this is what we call the camera frustum. Because the camera can only see what the camera sees, we render content to the camera frustum's perspective. We then render content to the rest of the LED wall just to help with the coloring and the shadows. So that's kind of a fun little trick that a lot of people have been doing. They've also integrated physical lights, and there is a plugin for Unreal called Carbon, which allows you to take real DMX lighting fixtures and control them from the Unreal Engine. Super cool. Here's just another fun behind-the-scenes picture. One thing that you probably all kind of notice is, besides the lack of people, this really does look a lot like a live event. There's the backstage area, all the cables on the ground. You can tell who the video guy is based on the cable. As I say, how do you find the shortest distance between 2 points? You ask the video guy and follow his cable. That was a funny one. And then this one is used on a news station. This isn't the Weather Channel. I don't remember which one this is, but they actually are using XR in a broadcast realm, which is really fun. Here's some work from XR Studios. They did the Billie Eilish web concert not too long ago. That turned out amazingly well. The content that those guys are producing is just unbelievable. Some of you might have seen the Fortnite J Balvin Halloween show. Yes, yes. And then, of course, Framestore has done their Blink project, which utilizes our new cluster rendering. Here's another picture. That's gorgeous. But what's interesting about this one, though, is rather than utilizing an LED floor, they're actually using real props. So that saves on the pixels. But what they're doing is they're utilizing a multitude of render nodes to do what we call cluster rendering, which we'll talk about in just a second. But it's just kind of this really cool hybrid mentality of reality with things that don't exist. And I think their work is beautiful. But here's a little case study, ITV Sports Studio. They're utilizing XR in a broadcast realm. That's all XR. This is the same set, just different background. So that's kind of fun. And then, of course, a lot of this is powered by the Unreal Engine. So one thing that we're really happy about with Disguise is we have a very, very tight-knit partnership and working relationship with Epic Games, who makes the Unreal Engine. So the Unreal Engine is utilized in video games, movies, famously used for The Mandalorian. And a lot of people previously had been utilizing what's called N-Display, which is the Unreal proprietary form of sending content to LED volumes. The downside, though, is it's incredibly difficult to do. You have to pretty much be a C++ programmer to make N-Display work properly, unless you're like a Jay Spriggs, hey Jay, or Bert or one of these power players, not to name drop. But as a result, though, we have announced our new system, which is called the Disguise RX, which is the render node. This system was made specifically for real-time content platforms such as Unreal, Unity, and Notch. And the way it works now is, look at this great schematic, is you could take an Unreal scene, a massive Unreal scene, and split it evenly across multiple render nodes. So you're able to then render photorealistic content at whatever resolution you want. If you want more photorealism, higher resolution, you can add more render nodes. You can then dictate them to splice your content to the LED volume for a massive volume, or you can do backplate and front plate, or you can do different cameras. The world is yours. But this utilizes the N-Display system. But rather than having to do the N-Display coding yourself, we do all of it for you in our software. It's really, really cool. As we mentioned, I want everyone to learn how we did all this. Nothing is a secret here at Disguise. Training.disguise.one. We have our free, that's right, free e-learning, where you can start with basic fundamentals and then eventually work your way all the way up to XR. XR isn't beta as of today, March 22nd, but I am happy to announce that it is coming gold to the public very, very, very soon. Hopefully by the time you finish your e-learning, you'll have will be released. But here's a little bit of what it looks like. So as I mentioned, it's not just a canned webinar of me talking, which would be a whole lot of fun. And if you want that, call me, and I'm sure we can work something out. But this is an interactive modular platform where we have certain steps. After you complete a course, we open up the next course for you. And we have a whole lot of courses. We have basic fundamentals, creative sequencing, OSC workflows, which talks about companion, pre-production workflow, augmented reality, DMX workflows, Omnico. And of course, XR is going to come soon with launch. And then we have our questions. Thank you. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We'll answer some questions, and then I can dive into the software live if people want.
Oh, I think that's exactly what everybody wants at the moment. They're everybody's
right?
itching to see some of this. Do we have a few minutes for a couple questions before we do that, though?
Of course.
I think that the next question leads perfectly into what we were just talking about.
Which is?
Sorry, I'll let Ed take that one.
Sorry about that. Let me look at where we're at. So Eddie Martinez here on Zoom had asked, how is Disguise and Notch connected, and can you show us?
Sure. So as things load up here, I'll tell you. So Notch, where it was founded, the founder used to work for Disguise. And then Sarah Cox, who was the VP of sales, now she's with White Light, was one of the heads of sales for Disguise. We are very, 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 very tightly integrated together, and we support Notch in a couple of different ways. We support the playback of what's called a Notch block, where you go into the Notch software, you export your file, you bring that in as a block of zeros and ones, essentially, where it's then created live in Disguise. We allow you to do this as just a layer in Disguise, and you can then manipulate your Notch layer live. We can also do live real-time editing with Notch. And then, of course, with RenderStream and our Disguise XR workflow, you can create 3D environments entirely in Notch and work with them there. But let me go ahead and share my screen. And we'll just keep on answering questions and whatnot as we do this. Let me just make sure this is all working. Yeah, look at that. So I'm not sure if anyone here has seen the Disguise interface before, but if not, whenever you start a new project, you get the same three things. You get a screen, yeah. You get a projector, and then you get a little guy. His name is Puck, P-U-C-K. And the fun thing about Puck is he is the exact size of Bono from U2, since the Vertigo Tour was the first major show that Disguise did. So if you ever question how many Bonos does it take to reach the top of my screen, you now can find out that answer. Amazing. But just kind of giving a little bit of a tour here. So we are in a 3D environment. So of course I can zoom in, zoom out, but more importantly, I can move in an isometric standpoint. So from here, I can then make the stage anything I want. If I want to make my venue look a little more like a show, I can be in an arena. Yay. So if I'm doing a tour where I'm going to be in an arena one night and then a theater the next night, I can just easily change the venue and make it look a little more photorealistic. Is this venue going to make my pixels look any better? No, but I think it's a lot of fun. So besides that then, as I mentioned, we do have a timeline here on the bottom. Everything does play in a linear fashion, and I'm able to create layers. And within the layers, I can create a piece of multimedia, which then I set up as a queue. I can just do a generative test pattern. And what's cool about this is truly generative. No matter what the size my screen is, it's going to make the test pattern that exact size. What's also nifty about Disguise is we do no scaling on the GUI. So this is a 1920 1080 screen. I'm actually looking at 1920 1080 pixels. We are not doing any scaling whatsoever for your GUI. So that's really nifty. But like any piece of media, I can shorten that and I can add another video. We'll just set up, we have George Costanza, because, you know, why not? It's an inside joke with Disguise. I'll fill you in later. But then, of course, we do just have color bars. But that's the Disguise ecosystem. And then I have my projector, where I can say what the resolution is. Where is it? Well, the resolution 1920 1080 is going to be 20,000 lumens, and I can change my renderer to be what we call the lux mode, where it's showing a little bit of light, and we see that Puck here is casting a shadow. It's like, Puck, you're in the screen. What are you doing, Puck? And then I can also change this to be the heat map, and I can see how many lumens are reflecting, or nits are reflecting off of my screen. If I want it to be a little bit brighter, let's do a 35K. Nice. Or maybe we afford the new Panasonic RQ50 and we have a 50,000 lumen projector. Super cool. So I'm able to utilize all this for pre-visualization purposes. Very cool. But that's not exciting. People want to see how we work with XR and extended reality. So we do make it pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete my projection surface. I'm going to delete my projector. I don't need him. And I'm going to, oh, look at Puck. There he is. He's so lonely. You know what? He's a little lonely. Let's give him some friends. All right, there we go. So I'm going to add some LED screens. One of the more popular looks for XR is the LED cube, where it's the two walls and the floor. The reason why is because you're able to, doesn't take that much space. So whenever a new object is created, it creates a mesh for you. All of our 3D objects are rendered as an OBJ, as a mesh. and that's where the content is put. It's automatically going to be 1 meter by 1 meter with the resolution 256. But I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Let's do 9 meters by 6 meters. Cool. So one other fun thing with Disguise is every place where you can input a value is a full functioning calculator. So if I know that my LED is 9 meters wide, which is probably going to be 18 panels, and I know each panel is 168, I can go 168 times 18 and get my resolution of 3024. I can do the same for the height. Let's do 168 times 12, 2016. Sweet. So I could go ahead and create a new screen at this point, or since I did a lot of the work already, I can just duplicate this one. And that's what I'm going to do. We'll call this LED right. And I'm going to move this screen to where it needs to be. The wrong axes. We'll make this 90 degrees. And I will just kind of move this screen downstage. And I think my height is, yes, that screen is in the floor. Where is this? Did I make these different sizes? Yes, 9 by 6, 9 by 6, 3. Why does that look so much bigger? Oh, because I'm off. We'll do it. So we also have these fun little handles here. So if you don't want to be as precise, we call them, God, what do we call them? Widgets? It doesn't matter. And I'm going to make my LED floor. LED floor. I'm going to have that come down stage, and we're going to rotate this negative 90 degrees. Sweet. Put that on the floor, and we'll move that over a little bit. And I'm going to make this 9. Fun, fun, fun. And I'll make this 3024. Cool. So we have a really big LED volume. Sweet. If you're able to get a size this big, then hey, you're doing something right in this world. I'm really proud of you. But the other thing that we need for anything XR, and all this you can do right away, yes, is I'm going to build a camera. I'm just going to call this camera 1. So this creates a virtual camera for me. I'm going to go ahead and pin this, and I can move the camera. There it is. And the camera is now looking at my stage. Neat. We see that here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and create a test pattern to go to all of my screens. So I'm going to create a new mapping, which this is what pushes the pixels to a physical screen. A mapping is basically how is the content being rendered to the mesh. A direct is the easiest way. We're pretty much saying, hey, go on there flat 100%. But with different mappings, you can do what's called a parallel mapping or perspective mapping. If you want to have one piece of content span, say 3 or 4 screens, with the separation between them, we have the appropriate map for you to do that as well. But a direct map is the easiest one. Just plaster the content 100% on the screen and call it a day. Cool. So if we just want to take a look at the feeds here, here I have my virtual screens. And then what I could do is then map it to a physical output. But what's nifty on the outputs, just to kind of show you some of the fun things we can do, if I want to apply scaling here, I can then do my own internal scaler on the output card without affecting anything over here. So that's just one of the fun parts of the VFC, the video format conversion cards that we have. I can also then, if I want to, this wouldn't make any sense to do, but if I want to do some warping here, maybe it's a projector and I want to smile. Yes, this makes no sense, but that's kind of the point, is that you can do that on Disguise and no one really cares. Once again, doesn't affect my stage view. Sweet. All right, but either way. So I have my my test pattern here. So if I were working in an XR environment now, if I wanted a real life output, I would bus this to the screen. And then what I start to do is I need to do the observations. So what an observation does, this allows you to line up the virtual augmented reality with physical reality. And we do that by creating what we call our virtual lineup layer. So the virtual lineup layer will then bus to just virtual reality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a mapping, and I'm just going to do a, well, let's do the camera perspective map. And then I'm going to render this to, oh, you know what I need to do? I know what I need to do. All the people who know what's going on are probably yelling at me right now. So I'm going to create now a new type of screen. Ooh. And this screen is called an MR set, or a mixed reality set. Now, one note, this is only available on the XR betas, but this is going to be going gold very, very soon, so everyone will be able to do it. But an MR set is a collection of physical screens, cameras, virtual reality that now creates a new artificial type of screen. So I'm going to call this MR set 1, and I'm going to say, what are the LED screens that are on there? I'm going to say LED floor, LED left, LED right, and then I'm going to put all the cameras that I may or may not have, because once again, I can use multiple cameras for this, but I only have one camera. Nifty. So now I've created my MR set. I can now do my virtual lineup pattern, where rather than busting this to the screen, I'm going to bus this to the MR set. And I'm going to make sure that this is bussed to the front plate, which looks like it is. Yes. So if I see here, if I look at my camera now, see that how it's now purple here? That is the virtual reality layer. Well, this is now just the reality. So then what I would do on a live situation is I would do what's called a spatial calibration. Go to observations. First, I would add my MR set. And let's see if it'll do this with just the, yeah, I know it's going to do that. Well, because I'm in windowed mode. Oh, well. Here, let's do calibrate delay. Yes. Well, because I'm all manipulated. But then what we would do is also, you can see over here, I would do a series of test patterns where it does dots on the screen and then dots on my augmented reality. As the pixels see each other and reality captures the camera, it's then going to merge them together and line up my spatial augmented reality across the physical pixels. Once I have a lined up grid like this, the effect is basically done, and at that point, I could start having some fun with XR. Now, of course, I don't think I have any XR content, but let's see what I have. I'll cheat this. Camera 1 perspective. Cool. So now if you see here on my camera feed, even as the camera frustum goes outside of the LED, it still maintains the picture to the camera. But if I also see the LED from a different angle, the content looks completely bizarre. Because we're not rendering to the perspective of the human eye, right now we're only rendering to the perspective of camera 1. This is the only eye that we see. So as a result, everything looks fine just to the camera. Now, of course, it's just simply color bars, 2D content. If you have real life content coming in from Unreal, it looks a whole lot more fun. But the idea is basically the same, and from a troubleshooting standpoint, this works. What's cool, though, is you still can work with XR with normal 2D content. You're still, of course, a little more limited to what you can do. But that also leads me to, yes.
Kevin, are you able to show us the view from the camera that is seeing it in the right perspective?
Right here. Yeah, this is the camera right here. Here, let me get rid of my. Yes, this is the camera here. So as I move it and zoom it. Right.
Yes. And in this view, we can only tell perspective because of the pucks that you put on the stage.
Correct.
Yeah. And
correct.
This is the perspective map screen, right?
This is using a perspective map. So if I then take the content off and show you the screens here, everything looks kosher. Let me see. You know what? I'm going to close my sharing for just 1 minute, and I'm going to load in a notch block that I have. I'm just going to hide this because I'm ashamed of my desktop. But while I'm doing that, any questions?
This one in the queue for you, Ed.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. There we go. Your desktop was screwing up what I was seeing there. I was confused as to which bar was mine and which was yours there.
Oh, who even knows anymore?
Exactly. So, where are we? How are you getting? Sorry, this is from Michael Fraley here on Zoom. How are you getting projectors to match the LED wall? Add on to previous question because there are so many different manufacturers with multiple units.
How am I getting them to match? As in like brightness, resolution? Well, you know, I'll do both. So one thing that we can do that a lot of people have probably seen before is that if you ever had to take one piece of content and span it across projectors and LED or maybe even television displays, that gets very difficult. I like to use the TV analogy. The reason why is they all have the same pixel count in 1920, 1080, or 3480 by 2160, but their physical size differences. It could be an 80-inch, it could be a 22-inch. But because we've added the element of physical size into Disguise, we can then interpolate the data to get the same pixels per inch or PPI across the display, whether it's 80 feet wide or 82 inches. So that's why we're able to take one piece of content and seamlessly span it because we have that added element of size.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you're going to do the training, do you have to have the dongle and all the physical stuff to do it, or can you just hop on the website and learn how to do it and worry about it later?
You don't need the dongle. We also do have a very 100% free demo version. The only limitation is you cannot save. So if anyone was an old school Nintendo player in the 80s, this is right up your alley. Just pause that game and don't let mom turn the TV off. But otherwise.
Well, no, you had to have mom turn the TV off so she didn't know you left the game running for days at a time.
Right, yes.
Or you just told her to stay away from the whole thing.
Get out of my room.
Or you had it off, Brad, where it turned itself off after a while anyway and you couldn't save anything.
Let's see, where did I put these notch blocks?
So
I'm
the
still
difference
back in the-
between the demo
sorry.
and the dongle version is you can save?
The dongle version is the full Disguise. So you can save, you can export, you can do DMX outputs. You can then also you can log into a show as an editor, so you can be manipulating the projection on a live server show in real time. The demo version is just that. It's a trial for demonstration purposes.
So it's something you could just practice on to learn what you're doing and just go,
Yes.
do I like this? Do I want this?
Do I want this? The answer is yes, you do.
Now, I saw that you did a camera that was tracking and the background mat was moving. Have you ever done anything with, say, a robot arm with a monitor on it? Where
Actually, yes.
I know the MTV VMAs did something similar to that a few years ago, but
yeah, there's quite a few. So the cool thing with the robots is it's actually easier to do the tracking because the commands are coming in as zeros and ones to move the robot, however it's doing. So it's just a matter of interpolating and changing that data into what we call the 3D protocol, which converts to lens data. So robots are actually surprisingly easy to work with. I like to name drop them a lot, but Berto Mora is working with a group up in what's their name? Up in the Portland area, where they're working on robotic arms for that exact reason. But yeah, it's all. If you control the robot with DMX, we can work with it in Disguise. So it's fun.
So Eddie Martino's on Zoom again. He's full of questions tonight. He was last week too with Isadora. So in the context of live virtual production, i.e. Zoom, what tools are necessary in addition to Disguise to an XR workflow?
Camera tracking. That is one of the secret sauces. Disguise has to know where the camera is in order for it to play. The visualizer I was showing you is That is Disguise. But the camera there, rather than having to click it with a mouse, I want it to track on my actual jib or my handheld operator. So I do need a form of MOSIS, Stipe, NCAM, Blacktracks. Pick your poison, pick your variable, and I need that because that then gives Disguise, gives us the ability to know where things are in relation.
And then Hank Tracy on Facebook asked, what is the base model of Disguise hardware that can operate an XR show?
The smallest one that can operate an XR show is going to be the VX1, which is an entry-level server that we have. Retail is going to be, I'll get back to you on that. I'll look it up. But that's going to be the smallest. It has one VFC card, but more importantly, it does feature a 25 gig network switch. So now that everything's network based and we're moving towards SMPTE, SG2110, these other NDI protocols, it's all really about network throughput and network bandwidth. So the VX1, the VX2, and the VX4 have 25 gig network SFPs by Mellanox. Go ahead, Jeff. What do you got?
Since you brought up network,
Sure.
How many NDI sources can it support, or is there a limit? Or is it just up to the network capabilities?
It is up to the network capabilities. By default, out of the box, we give you 16 live inputs. You can go above and beyond that if you're able to manage your NDI network in an appropriate way. Based on the server that we give you, though, like a VX4, for example, you get two 10 gig network ports, two 25 gig network ports, and a 1 gig network port. I don't care how you use them. I don't care how you divvy them up. So if you do it properly, then really the limitation is up to your networking backbone.
Okay, so I heard you mention 16 inputs earlier, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
So that's just on hard inputs.
Yeah, so like we have 16 3G SDI inputs on the VX4, which can be coupled to do quad link if you have a device that can output that. But at the same point, you can make an input whatever you want, and we also allow you to go above 16. But if you got an actual piece of copper you want to plug in, 16.
Got it.
Yes. And I am
Can you input to one server and output to another?
Yes. So we can do that a couple different ways. Obviously, you can just go copper in, but you can utilize our render stream protocol. So you can run like the Unreal Engine on a Disguise server and then utilize network protocol and input that into your other server as a source. And then you can do full XR with that. If you want to link servers together, you could then do that too. We don't really have a limit to how many servers you can link. So if I want to make a big, massive server farm of 64 4K at 60 outputs, gotcha.
So, but if you say you needed 17 inputs, could
Well,
you
we allow you to
input off another one,
run
run it across the network as an NDI source? Or
well, at that point, you can
NDI
just bring it into the server as an NDI source. So we get 16 physical inputs, but you can go beyond that. So you could do 16 copper and then another 16 NDI. That's fine. And there's a motivational speaker in Florida who's currently pushing that limitation as we speak.
Really? I
Yes.
never would have known him.
Yes, we give a nice shout out to Scott Lau if you're watching. Scott, you're doing the people's work.
He's actually working right now. They're doing a show right now.
I bet he is. Oh, that's funny.
So I'll jump in there with another madman from Florida, other than Scott Lau, right? I'll jump in there, Rafa Lamoda, and he's asking on the show.
Yeah.
He wants to know where he can get one of those jackets you got on.
Well, first, this is a shirt.
He said jacket. I'm just a messenger.
That's fine. But Ralph, if you send an application to jobs@disguise.one, we'll see what we can do. No, Ralph, I'll hook you up. You know I will.
So I got one here from Chuck Wojak as well. He's asking certification options and opportunities.
Yes. So that's always been a tricky part with anything. Up until now, we have not certified people with Disguise. It's kind of been a tricky situation. But I'm happy to announce that we are now going to be offering certifications on our online e-courses. If you take a course now and complete it and you don't get the certification right now and we add it later, you will be able to get that certification. We are also then working towards a certified XR workflow specialist, which you'll be able to complete on the e-learning. One preface. Some of these courses, specifically like the XR class, is going to be a combination of e-learning with an in-person course, because so much of it is tangible with setting up the camera tracking, the LED, and the gen lock and everything else. We're going to have you do an e-learning aspect and then come in some point down the road and do a two-person or 2-day or so in-person course to get certified at that point. Some of the other classes, though, you'll be able to take it online and use your certification, rock and roll.
Are there stock sets and things in Notch or that you could buy if you just wanted a desert scene or a ESPN studio?
For the Unreal Engine, yes, there is the Unreal Epic Marketplace where you can find free. Oh, I found my Notch blocks. Where you can find free as well as not free stages. Notch is a little more build your own. However, at Notch.1, they do have sample stages. In fact, it's loading up right now on my computer. I'm loading up my Notch program, and I'm going to show you what a 3D Notch virtual environment looks like. I will then export that as a Notch block, and I will drop that into Disguise and utilize it with the XR workflow. Boom.
Very cool.
While you're
Sorry.
while you're talking about Notch real quick, can you just tell us how the dongles work? If you're using both the Disguise and Notch, or do you have to have multiple dongles? How does this work together?
So like Apple, you are going to start collecting dongles. The only difference, though, is ours will be usable over time. But yes, a lot of these licensed softwares we utilize what's called Code Beater, which is a USB dongle where you put the license physically onto. The cool thing is, because we play nice with Notch, you can put a Notch license and a Disguise license on the same dongle. So if you have a handy dandy Notch dongle, you can put your Disguise license and vice versa. You do not need a different USB dongle for each software. Like Disguise, Notch has a demo version, but they also have the Permanent Learners Edition, which is a non-expiring universal license that allows you to build projects, demo, and learn. And then you can do more. In fact, let's go ahead and this is load up now. Let's dive into Notch. So this is Notch. It's all node based. So I have my nodes here and all my roots, and then I have my video. So looking at my video here, I can see that I have this really cool looking space themed show. Kind of cool. So what I'm going to do, though, is I want to export this scene into Disguise. So I'm going to go to compile block for media server. I'm going to call this AV Educate Notch. Let me save it to my desktop so I can actually find it. Yes, oh, VP Rockstage works too. Compiling. So one difference between this and, say, like Final Cut is I'm not rendering out an MP4 and MOV. I'm not rendering out a video file at all. I'm actually encapsulating all the code that comes into all these roots and these nodes, and the code is going to be broken down and written and read live on the Disguise server. Alien technology. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my project folder. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to find my Notch block. Here it is. We'll copy that. Open a project folder. It's going to go into my objects, into my Notch file. I'm going to paste. I'm going to go back into Disguise, and we're going to see how much this hates me when I run Notch and Disguise at the same time on my computer. But what I'm going to do is just delete you, go away. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to create a Notch layer because we handle Notch locally very easily. Yes. And now I'm going to say, what Notch block do I want this to be? It's going to be my VP Rockstage. Now smoke comes out of your machine. You know, and as it compiles, so once again, it's not playing back a video. It is actually taking information and zeros and ones and OpenGL shaders, and it is creating content out of it. Now, if I look at the perspective here, this looks all types of wonky. But if I move my camera, notice, here, let me go to my feed here. It renders well beyond the frustum of the LED. And my guy is static. So if I had this connected to a real camera, this is what I would be seeing. And then to the naked eye, it would look something weird and horrendous like this. But here's what we're doing with what we call the set extension. So we have the set, we have the extension, and to the camera frustum, it is unlimited, universal, to the point where I can even rotate 360 degrees around. So this allows you to do really cool shots in really tight spaces. I don't need much room for an XR stage. I want to say my good friend Rafael Mota is watching unless he got bored. He did this not too long ago in Anaheim, California with a very, very small volume. Oh, why am I being yelled at? So that's pretty cool. So with Notch then as well, I don't think I exposed any parameters, but, oh, yep. I can make my guy, oh, Slack is coming on to me. Yep, so because it's Notch, the guy was an exposable parameter. So here, let me get rid of Puck and all his friends. So right now I don't have the actor, but if I want to bring the actor back in, there he is. And then if I move my camera back, go away, Eli. Oh, he's sending me a higher quality version of the presentation I just gave you all. That's funny. But yes, so Notch is, and I still have Notch here in the background. So if I want to change the lights and Notch, I could do so here. Maybe like this light, which, where is that light? I could change the direction of the lights. I could change the brightness. I could change the color, update the Notch block, and put that right back into Disguise.
So it's not real time between the two programs, but it is updatable, save it, reload it kind of thing?
Both. So Notch works both ways. So I can export a Notch block, but the other thing I can do is I can export a file path from Notch into the objects folder of Notch. And then it is a true real one-to-one, and I can have my Notch editor there working in real time, and you'd see the changes occur on the Disguise workflow as it happens.
So across the network or something of that nature.
Exactly, yes. It goes across the network. This method of the Notch block is much more popular for live events, concerts, tours, conventions, et cetera, because it's a little more tangible at that point. I have it, it's ready, it's done. But I can work in both variables. So if I have if my TD was there on site and he or she wanted the location of the sun to change in the shadows, we would then have that set up as network and editing and change it in real time.
Elle, you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like you could also expose parameters from Notch and then control them directly in Disguise, in addition to what you're talking about of having it linked with the file path so that you can have a Notch programmer sitting there on a computer doing stuff, but you could expose parameters, and I imagine you can also control those with anything you can use to control Disguise.
You're 100% correct, yes. So I can expose as many parameters in Notch as I want, and I can then make that into a keyframe. So if I want to expose the lights, maybe I want them to be able to be changed color in Disguise, or brightness, or intensity, or even physical location of props, I can do so. There is a catch though. The more you expose, the more what we call expensive the Notch block gets, and the more GPU rendering power it's going to need. The less elements you have exposed, the better it's going to perform on lower powered systems. So you do have to kind of find that equal balance of bang for the buck. And we measure that in what we call notch blocks, or notch marks, excuse me. So you can then use that to kind of benchmark and bench test your machine and see how much you can get away with. So it's always kind of a fun thing to do on Notch. I'll share my screen, why not? We'll see how well my computer does. How do I hide this? Here, let me go to, where is it? Benchmarking. I'm going to run the benchmark. Yes, I do have an NVIDIA Quadro P6000. But now look, my computer is lagging. It's probably going to freeze.
Well,
All
I
right.
was just about to ask that question. So you have a Quadro P6000?
Yes. So my notch mark is 22,600, which if I submit and compare results, let's see what it is. But yes, I do. All right. So you see here, here's where I am on the list, which is actually not too bad. But we see right now the big bad boy is the RTX 3090. I don't think anyone has benchmarked an A6000 or at least shared it publicly. But you could see like a Disguise VX4, which is really made for live events, isn't that heavy with notch, while the GX2C, and here's the GX2, and the GX2C has much more notch capabilities. So that's where it's interesting, because the VX4 has more inputs and more outputs, but from a GPU horsepower standpoint, the GX2C is the more powerful machine. But it just depends what you're looking for. Do I want a machine that's really, really reactive and good for generating, or do I want something that can just push a whole lot of pixels? Yeah, those hippo guys. But Notch is pretty nifty. Unreal works very much the same way, where you create a network stream utilizing our own proprietary form of NDI and SMPTE ST2110 that we call render stream. Right now, render stream is NDI based, but we are migrating this towards an ST2110 backbone and protocol. And that allows you to do uncompressed 10-bit content from Unreal into Disguise with full set extension, camera tracking, and all that good.
And on that note, how about some more questions?
Yes.
All right. So this one you did kind of allude to. So it's about the dongles. Marchie's asking, do you require a notch playback dongle externally, or does the RX come with a built-in notch playback license? I know you mentioned the dongle they play nice together, but does it come with it?
Okay, yes. So the RX, the render node, does require a Notch player license if you want to utilize Notch via render stream. That's a very particular question, which makes me assume they probably knew the answer. But yes, so Notch, which is the RX, which is our external render node, can play Notch, Unity, or Unreal. If you want to run Notch off the RX and pipe it into Disguise, we do require a Notch player license for the RX.
Great, thanks so much, Kevin. And you're right, Marchie is definitely a super brain when it comes to all things that I know nothing about. So safe assumption there. And this next one, I'm so sorry if I butcher your name. It's very challenging for me to pronounce, but Opeyemi Stefan. It almost sounds like a little like song lyric. I like it.
You were probably close.
Is asking, what is the criteria for a beginner, or how does the e-learning progress? The English is a little interesting, but I think
That's
they want to
fine.
know kind of where to start.
You know what I'll do? Rather than tell you, I will show you. So I am going to go to my e-learning. And hopefully you don't see my password, which I don't think you will, but if you do, screw it. What is my password? Yeah. It's fine, I promise you. So here's the way it works, is whenever you're first registered, you're automatically enrolled in our basic fundamentals. That's the beginning, that's where you start. We then show you all your courses that you have here in progress. Me being an admin, I have them all, but eventually like XR workflows and DMX workflows. But what I can do is I can go to my courses, where is my courses? Course catalog, here we go. So I have my beginner courses, advanced courses, and expert courses. The advanced courses will be locked until you complete basic fundamentals. Once you complete that, we then unlock it and you can kind of pick your learning path. But for example, you then have your phases of fundamental, which is broken down into 11 steps. You can go into each step, and of course I've already completed it, and you're able to then begin your training process. Nice. If I were to go to our website, which is disguise.one, not disguise.com, that's a costume shop. So if you ever want to buy an Elsa and Anna costume from Frozen, you go to disguise.com. If you want to learn about XR and cool things, you go to disguise.one. But if I go to learn and support, this will kind of show you our learning path. And so here's kind of what we have. And this is all up for interpretation. Take as many classes as you want, please. But Disguise Programmer, you want to do Disguise for live events, we recommend you take Fundamental and then Creative Sequencing. If you want to be a content specialist, maybe more on the pre-production aspect, we have our pre-production workflow where we talk about doing UV maps for OBJs and creating pixel maps in After Effects. System Technician, Fundamental, System Integration, and OmniCal is our camera calibration system. Operator, we recommend fundamentals, creative sequencing, and system integration. And then you just want to be a workflow specialist, take them all. And this has OmniCal, Black Tracks, creative sequencing, and then we're going to add XR. And then this comes a little breakdown of what they have. We do customized trainings. You want me to come to you? I'll happily come to you. And then, of course, we're going to be doing in-person trainings in LA once it's safe to do so. Now, what we're doing that's really, really cool, for our learning path, whether you complete a course online or in person, it will count on your learning path. So if you take basic fundamentals in person, we'll register that on the e-learning, and then you could start taking the advanced classes. Same thing too, where if you took system integration in person, we will recognize and respect your e-learning that you did prior to that class. So the whole thing is cohesive. It's in person, online, combined together. And it's awesome.
Great,
So
thanks,
much.
Kevin.
Yeah, it's I'm going to throw it to Ed now for a few more questions.
Thanks, Disa. So Tony Nobly had asked, I'm late getting here. Is this Mac and Windows?
Unfortunately, Tony, this is a Windows-based system. Unfortunately, we do not support Parallels. We do support Boot Camp, but you do need that. Specifically, we need what's called the OpenGL shader, which is easier on Windows, but we are a Windows platform.
Great. Sean Wells, sorry,
Hey.
is the 10-bit uncompressed workflow 100% and ready to go, or waiting for the end of beta/public release?
Oh, Sean, how are you? It's very good, Sean. R18, if you're a member of our Disguise community, which that's another thing I want to mention to all of you as well, because I think Sean's trolling me here. But so we do have the Disguise community, and this is really, really cool. So the Disguise community is actually moderated by Disguise, and we have a user forum on here. We have software downloads, advisories, and you can actually have your support tickets and your RMAs on here with links to the web store. So you have your really awesome forum, and if you're a member of the XR Insider group, which I know you are, Sean, you can go to your XR Insider here at the top and download the newest beta version, which is very, very, very good. But we do have a community, and we actually have this as an app on iOS and Android. So you can take Disguise Support community app everywhere you go. In fact, let me see if I can look at that. Look at that little Disguise logo on there. Yeah, it's cool stuff. So to answer Sean's question, yes, I think uncompressed 10-bit render stream is very stable right now.
Great. I think, Chris, you got the next question there?
Yep. Brenton March said, will courses be available north of the 49th parallel, or is it in-person training stateside only?
So Disguise, we have offices. Where's the 49th? Where is the 49th parallel? What is that? Canada? What is that?
Yes,
Yes.
Just using some funky terms.
Okay, just make sure. So what we do offer is where we don't have a Disguise office, which by the way we do have in London, in New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Los Angeles, where we do in-person classes. We also have certified Disguise trainers, which are listed on our website under the training section, and we have trainers in every country where you're able to reach out to them and schedule in-person training classes. We are also more than happy and able to travel international to teach training classes. I do require all disguise trainers to have a certified, valid passport. Especially
Now,
if you're in Hawaii, because then I'll come to you.
Every country?
Where do you want to go? I mean, probably aren't going to hold one in North Korea anytime soon, but
Vatican City? Kosovo?
sure.
So, Kevin, I did notice you didn't say Brooklyn. Is the Brooklyn office no longer there?
Brooklyn office is temporarily closed. It was unfortunate timing of the lease expiring when COVID lockdown happened. So we're at the end of the lease. There will be a Brooklyn office. It will be back. But currently, Tatton Jacob is still in Brooklyn. He's still situated. So Disguise New York does exist. Just the physical storefront, we're still looking for a new location once it's safe to do so.
Right. Yeah, I took my training with Tatton and with Chet Miller. So
perfect. Yes, fantastic group. Probably the best trainers there are. Yeah, we're gonna have the home, but it literally was, hey, do you want to sign another 2-year lease right now? By the way, you can't go in. So like, I'm gonna kick that can down the road a little bit and see. The cool thing though is the LA office got all the New York equipment. So if you want to come to LA anytime soon, we got a lot of stuff.
So I just want to jump in real quick. We got about 15 minutes left on the clock here, a little bit more than that. I got a couple more questions, but before we do, I know Ed likes to do a little bit of the panelist stuff here, kind of get you guys involved a little bit more before we wrap up. I do want to try to wrap up on time tonight. I'm big on that. I also want to get to my favorite part, which is the feedback, the positive feedback we got from the community. So Kevin, before we keep going down with these questions, did you have anything else you want to show us before we keep asking questions, or are we good to continue on that path?
I'm trying to think. So we are on the precipice of a lot of really cool things coming your way. There are some things I can disclose. There are some things I cannot disclose. For the AV Educate community, the technicians out in the field, I highly recommend, I know you're probably going down this path, networking. AV is IP. SMPTE ST2110, the ratified standard for uncompressed 10-bit AV, is going to become a major player and standard in this field. If you are unfamiliar with IP, I highly recommend you do everything in your power to get versed and brushed up on that. Besides that, then XR, that's probably the big one. That's coming. Really, that's why I'm kind of like doing this press release tour, is for release R18. But no, that's it.
Yeah, definitely take his advice. If anybody hasn't been watching our show for the last year, you've definitely heard multiple times IP is definitely coming. It is definitely, if it is here, it is coming more. It is becoming more integrated into our system. It's been hyped for a couple of years now. We are at the point to where it is becoming part of the workflow. It is becoming part of the new norm. So definitely recommend you taking that advice. Ed, I'll let you kind of take over here and get the panelists involved here before we get to the closing part.
Yeah, great. So yeah, I would love to get some of the. Oh, interesting. That didn't work like I thought it was going to. I'd love to get some input from the panel. Let us know what you've thought so far of Kevin's presentation. I noticed, welcome to Jeff Keithley, who jumped in and had a couple questions earlier, and Dave. Any thoughts or?
Be nice, be gentle.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, coming from Watch Out and Maluman background,
cool.
Could you show us some just simple, quick programming in the timeline to manipulate things to get from one place to the other? Are there aux timelines, or how do you transition from one timeline or turn them off and on?
Absolutely.
If that's okay with the group.
Yes. So because we come from the touring rock and roll world, we break everything down to tracks. There's no limitation to how many tracks you want. So looking at track 1, for example, here I have my notch feed and my XR, but I'll just make a track 2. And now I have a clean slate. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and pipe in some content here. And I'm just going to do color bars because that's all that I have at the moment, but that's okay. So we'll do 16:9 color bars. and I'll do this as all LED. And what I can do now is I'm going to go ahead and put a tag marker here. I'll just put a little note. I'll call this Simpty. And then I'm going to go to my other track, and I'm going to call this, guess, test pattern. And then we'll call this XR. So what I'm going to do now is I kind of alluded, I'm going to do my universal crossfade. So I'm going to go to my project settings. I'm going to go to my global crossfade. I'm going to set it to fade. I'm going to have it be 1 second. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control G, G for, I guess, go. And I now have a cue list. Yeah. And the cool thing about the cue list is it doesn't care what track or what timeline anything is on. So now as a result, I can do a clean crossfade to anywhere on my timeline, regardless of how many tracks that I have. And it shows me a nice little countdown clock for how long is remaining on that specific piece of multimedia. So here I have 30 seconds. Because we also work in the corporate world, we know that sometimes when you do like an intro video, maybe like the opening video, the stage manager might say, hey, can you let me know when I have 30 seconds to the voiceover for when the talent has to come out on stage? So now you're having to do mental gymnastics in your mind saying, okay, so TRT is 2 minutes, but we have 55 seconds until 30 seconds remaining. What you can do is once you do rehearsals and find where in the timeline that part goes, I can add a note and I'll put speaker go. And now this automatically adds to my list. And not only that, it shows me how long I have until the speaker go cue. So I can say, all right, 26 seconds remaining in video, 15 seconds till speaker cue. So that's just kind of a fun little way to improve that. Here's a little trick for you as well. If you hold Control and click any tab, it's going to pin it so it doesn't close. So that's Control click. And that's just a really good way to deal with your cue list and your cue stack and set up a show for programming.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you said the VX1, Kevin, is the place to start to get as a base level to get into XR?
Yes. So the VX1 is the smallest, least expensive model that is fully XR capable with no restrictions or limitations. What I mean by that is there are servers that can do 8-bit compressed render stream, which still looks fine. A lot of people do it. But if you want true 10-bit uncompressed render stream, the VX1 with its 25 gig network port is the easiest and least painful way for your wallet.
And speaking of that, I know this is a question I have a general idea, but where does it start? Where do we start out with the servers that is the hardware side?
35-ish.
So I thought, okay.
And then add numbers.
Right. Yeah. More capacity means more numbers.
Yes.
Of course. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So, anybody else? Oh, John Edelson, I see your hand.
You touched on Zoom being integrated a little earlier. Do you have any sort of exciting example where a lot of people were brought into a virtual stage, like a big screen, like a bunch of people using VR placement?
There's a as I mentioned, there's a motivational speaker out of South Florida who I legally cannot say his name for NDA purposes, the friend DAs, who is utilizing this as we speak, literally as we speak, where it's that big wall of just thousands of faces for it. There is a Disguise America's Facebook group where gentlemen such as Mark Barbour post photos of similar situations and similar setups. But the one big key example is under the friend DA, and I can't show pictures, unfortunately. But if you buy a certain DVD, you may see it.
Well, you can't say it, but I can say it, can't you?
I was gonna say, can I say it? I mean, I didn't sign anything.
Why you got to be like that?
Well, and I'm trying to think of other people or actually taking the Zoom participants and placing them in much more aggressive methods. Some of the things you showed, I think we could probably take those people and do some pretty magical things within the space.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yes. The biggest thing that we're doing is we're trying to remove all technical limitations, where really the only limitation is your creativity. And then once you figure that out too, we'll find a way on our end to do it. The one thing that we really strive for at Disguise is we like to say that we are driven by the creatives. We are a technology company, but we are a creative technology company. It's the artists, it's the designers, it's the end users who drive everything. We're just the geeks in the back who type the code, who make it work. I just work on the support and the training side, but it's just the visions. Disguise programmers are a different breed. They're not going to be as clean cut as most of your corporate technicians. You're going to see some interesting hairstyles, some interesting hair colors, facial piercings, tattoos, but they are the biggest sweethearts you'll ever meet, and they're just truly they're passionate and just driven by the why and the artistic endeavor of what it is that we do, which a lot of times is overlooked, especially in the corporate world. So being able to kind of create is amazing.
Are you saying this panel doesn't look like Disguise programmers? That's what I'm just
not saying that at all. I'm not saying that at all. But I probably wouldn't anticipate Disguise being used at a medical conference. Unless it was a really cool, like medical marijuana medical conference or something. Because then it probably would be.
Sorry about that. Just muted there. So yeah, would love to. Anybody else? You joined us again this week. Thank you. What are some of your thoughts?
I really haven't. Kevin, I work for Tricotronics. We make Isadora, and so the scale of the productions that I work on is dwarfed in comparison to some of the things you've talked about tonight, and it's one of the reasons I haven't gotten into Disguise, is because I know it's the shows have budgets that are not the budgets of the shows that I work on. So it's been really great to finally have a chance to be exposed to this technology, and it's wonderful, and the capabilities are astounding.
So I'm actually glad you said that. You're not the first person to say that. Disguise has always had this mystique of being unattainable, being incredibly expensive, which is true. It is a luxury boutique niche brand. I will not deny that. But there's always been this mentality of it's unachievable or unattainable by my production or a production. And that's the exact reason we've released the two new hardwares that we have in the last year, which is the VX1 and the VX2. Previously, we've had the Disguise Solo, which is made for integration, but is also very affordable. The Disguise Solo retails by $15,000. And then you had usually the Disguise GX2C, the Disguise VX4, which is closer to the 6 digits. But there's nothing in between. There's this really big, broad region and area. So we've created the VX1 and the VX2. But just to show you, though, the VX1 is still capable of doing 4 discrete HD outputs or a 4K output with a 12G input. The VX2 can do 8 discrete independent HD outputs with 8 inputs as well. So these are not jokes of boxes. They're incredibly powerful pieces of hardware. So we're really hopeful that that's going to be a little more inviting towards the corporate sector and some of these other shows. And if you think about it too as the tool of the pre-visualization, even if you never take it to show site, the ability to create your entire show and lay out your projectors and your screens, then put a virtual reality headset on with your customer and walk them through their ballroom and say, here's what it looks like to stand on stage with the people in the crowd. Here's what it looks like in the back of the room, and I'm going to play your opening video. We like to think that we're multi-purposed. But thank you for that point. And thank you for joining us.
Just looking at the time, Omar, do you want to go through some of those positive comments real quick?
Let's get on the negative.
Unfortunately for you, there was no negative, so it's all positive tonight. But I do have one concern, and I'm hoping that my team can pick up on the slack. There are a lot of positives coming in right now, and I'm trying to keep up with them. I got to a point, I was literally going to message someone to read these off while I kept going, but I'll read off what I got here, and then I'll just jump over to all the other platforms here. But I'll start from the very, very top. So Just for the numbers on this side, I like to keep this for historical records and purposes, but we had 11 on YouTube, we had 38 on Facebook, and 34 on Zoom tonight, which gives us about 80 plus people watching you and learning tonight, which is very, very cool. AV Trainer said, it's almost fun seeing a Disguise presentation not being played back inside of the Disguise Designer. Eddie Martinez says, so excited for this talk. Again, Eddie Martinez, the training is top notch. Eddie Martinez said, love their humor. Go, Kevin. Marcus Pena said, COVID-19 causes us to delay the opening of our 4D theater and VR environment since Science Center. I love the software and hardware setup. Brent said, this is an older image, Lena test pattern. Alan Peanut said, super great. I'm more about audio, but super interested. Someone mentioned I want more dad jokes. Ed Martin read, render nodes, all in capital letters there. Laura Nicholas Macy, real talk, that's my favorite flight path. I always walk it when going through ATL airport. Ed Martin said, applause. Chuck Wojak, what the puck? Which seems like a workaround for my problem that I have going on. Ed Martin said, applause. Ed Martin again, I feel just like a Rick rolled. I feel like I just rolled. I'm sorry. I feel like I just Rick rolled by that George Costanza image. Chuck Wojak again. Can someone give me a client that will pay for all of this quickly? In exclamation marks. Rafa Moto, it was the most fun I've had in a while. And again, this is so good. AV Educate delivers. Dan Harley, well, great energy presentation, such a cool product. Wow. Ray Harris, great training. I had no idea what this really was, and it is super cool. Emily Schrader, as a stage manager, I love that. I love this. Chuck again, amazing presentation, amazing delivery, humor, knowledge, and excitement. It had it all. I expect a demo unit to be delivered soon. Scott Gorshek, gotta love Kevin, and I'm going to miss being able to drop by and see him. Although I haven't been able to do that for a year. Keep working on your dad jokes, Kev. You'll get there someday. Brett Chandler, very cool, very slick, awesome show. Andy Carluccio, XR stage download, Zoom OSC. Not sure what y'all did with it. Ha ha ha. Emily Schroeder, great presentation. It's easy style. It was understandable mostly to a non-technical but curious stage manner. Again, Andy Carluccio. Disguise supports shaders, and our Zoom OSC shader could map Zoom portions to their surface. Chuck Wojcik again here is obviously loving the product tonight. Oh, I could use it for a medical conference. They wouldn't know what hit them. Emily Schrader again, but it could be so cool for a surgical conference. Brent Chart, great presentation. Looks like it changed a heap since I used it last in 2014.
Oh, yes.
Hank Tracy, I've had the chance to check out the XR beta version from Disguise, and Kevin's brief demo on building an XR setup was great. Very helpful to visualize the process. Thanks to everyone involved. Sean Willis, Kevin's a rock star, and Sean once again, we've used him for several medical conferences. And then let me just double check over here if I'm not missing anybody. Thanks for presentation, falling out. That's anybody easy one. Kevin Rocks, had a good chance to check out. Yep, I think we're good. Between Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom, I think I've got them all. So
there's got to be a negative. There's got to be.
No, it was great, man. I think everything was good.
Here,
I
you
had
want
a great
negative?
time.
You broke my heart by telling me Unreal Engine was designed by the CEO of Epic, because I despise Epic Gaming with a freaking passion, but love the Unreal Engine. There's your negative. You broke my heart tonight.
Sorry.
I'm sure you said a lot of positives about this being an only PC thing and not a Mac thing. There's a lot of faces on here tonight that are very PC lovers and Mac haters. I won't mention anybody, but you know who you are.
Nice when things work.
I can start a fight again if you want.
But listen, it's 9 o'clock on the dot. I don't want to keep talking. We know what happens when I talk too much. Things come out of my mouth that shouldn't. Ed, I'll let you take over.
Great. So first off, as always, we want to thank DVE Store for their continued support. You get to see AV Tech Talks every week in beautiful 1080p across all the platforms where we broadcast in 1080p because of that support from the DVE Store. So check them out at dvestore.com. With that, next week, I just want to let you guys know, we're going to welcome Lee Love of Photo Mentor. He's going to be on the show to talk about some tips and tricks for making you look your best with your camera. So the camera that you have at home, it'll walk you through some pitfalls so you don't you're not doing things that aren't helping you. If you got a DSLR at home and you're not sure, oh, can I use that for my Zoom meetings? You're going to find out next week because Lee Love's going to walk us through that. And I will drop, excuse me, I will drop the event pages in the relevant places so you can go check that out, get more information, find his website and all that. Bodhi, do you want to really quickly tell us what you got coming up? And then Omar, tell us what you got coming up on Wednesday night for the podcast.
Chris, I'll let you go first.
Yep, Monday through Friday, 8 to 2, I stream on Twitch as much as possible to promote charity works. Don't forget that I have it coming up, and I'll blast it out on all the pages. I do have a 24-hour marathon coming up that I'm going to do, that everything donated, subs, bits, everything goes to the Extra Life charity, and all proceeds will go to the local children's hospital here in Fort Myers, which is Golisano Children's Hospital. Other than that, you can find me at twitch.tv/ToxicBiowolf.
Awesome. So real quick, next Wednesday, if you guys haven't been watching our podcast series, right now we're doing stuff about resumes, cover letters, and building on those things. We have a great panelist last time. A lot of them are coming back next week. We're talking about social media and the effect social media has on your resume and your ability to get hired. Right now, as the season comes back and everybody's hiring and looking for new people, we're trying to help you get your stuff together, right? So join us this Wednesday coming up on the final part of a 2-part series on resumes, letters, and cover letters about social media and how that affects you, and speak to these hiring managers and HR managers who are with us and get the information as well, so you can reach out to them for further information or possibly get a job.
Excellent. Thanks, Omar. I do want to remind people to we continue our conversations on our Discord. We have our own Discord server. I posted a link. Some people said they weren't able to get into it. So
I refreshed it.
You refreshed it? Great.
Yeah,
if you have it,
posted
can
a new
you
one.
post it? Can you post it again, Bodhi, if you have it handy?
Hmm?
Thank you, sir. So yeah, join the Discord. The community helps each other. There's a channel for every episode we've been doing since we launched the Discord. Eventually, we will get the backlog of past episodes so you can find the relevant information. Kevin, we would love it if you joined our Discord. That way, if people have questions after this, which I'm sure they will, because you're lightning fast with Disguise, and I'm sure nobody could catch it at the lightning speed you were going through it. So there's probably going to be more questions that come up, and there's a channel just set aside for that. And then today I made a media servers category, and I added a channel for Disguise specifically. So get in there, continue the conversation. Users can help each other. We want the community helping each other, answering questions. There's so much of that goes on already. It's really a great thing to see when everybody can kind of help each other out. And you can always reach out to me, Omar, or Chris, and we'll try to put you in touch with the people who can get you the answers if we don't have them. So yeah, we're here every Monday, and we'd love you to come back, join us, come hang out. If you want to be part of the panel, send us an email at info@aveducate.com. That'll get right to us. And then, if you think you could be on the panel, we would love to have you, and help spread the word. And then Omar, I guess our YouTube, right? We're kind of building up our library on YouTube. So if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube, go to the YouTube channel. I posted a bit.ly link to it a few minutes ago. Go check it out, and make sure you hit that subscribe, or what do they say? The kids say these days, smash that subscribe button. That's what we need. So with that, I want to make sure everybody has time. We're trying to end. We're 5 minutes over. Don't forget about office hours. Monday night office hours is starting up in a few minutes. So you got enough time. You can get over there if you want to check out Alex Lindsay's office hours. It was great that we were able to work with them so that everybody could attend all the programming that they want to see, all this great content, get these questions answered. So we're really excited about what they're doing, and that everybody's able to work together so that everyone on the internet can learn anything they want to about AV and production. So with that, I want to say goodnight to Facebook and YouTube. We will see you guys next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and have a great one. And of course.